Raven Marigold and her best friend head all the way to Connecticut to see the tea shop Raven just inherited from her estranged grandmother. What they find instead is a dead body in the shop, and before Raven can even find her bearings, a talking cat tells her she's descended from a line of witches. Welcome to Fictional Narrative. I'm Neri, and this is the last Cozy Saturday of the year. At the beginning of the year, I started the series with 2 different paranormal cozy mystery books, and so this is kind of like a fun bookend. And if you are new to Cozy Saturday, it's a series where I review a new cozy mystery universe that I've just delved into. I give the non-spoilery review, the rating, whether or not I would continue it, followed by a spoiler warning, and then we go into the spoilery portion of the review. This week I am reviewing Magical Blends by Kennedy Layne. This is the first in the Paramour Bay series. This book also is kind of weird in comparison to the other books that I've reviewed this year, because every single point that I have something to say about is kind of a double-edged sword. For example, even if I were to start with positives, I could tell you I really like the concept. I love that trope of, unfortunately, a relative has died, but it's a windfall for the main character and kind of a start of a brand new journey for them. It's a perfectly fine, almost in a way, classic setup to this kind of story. But then I kind of hit a wall with this book where it's an introduction, maybe I should go easy, but at the same time, it's very glaringly obvious that it's just trying to meet all the other tropes of having quirky characters, of having feuds that, you know, are long in the making, but not necessarily necessary to even have now. Right off the bat, when this series starts, we know that Raven Marigold has inherited this tea shop from her estranged grandmother. However, her mother does not know that she's, accepted this inheritance, right? So, in which case, she's come from, New York to Connecticut with her best friend to basically receive her inheritance. Her grandma has a couple of conditions: keep my shop open for X amount of time. The very, very, very basic thing. But her mom doesn't know about it. But then her best friend also has to go back to New York because her best friend lives there. And so it's not like she can hide it from her mom. But also she's estranged from her grandmother, but is close to her mom, and yet she wants to pull this despite the fact that her grandmother has passed. Whatever animosity between her grandmother and her mom could probably be laid to rest. She could probably have been honest with her mom about her plan of what she's going to do, which is follow the rules of the will, and this will result in a financial windfall for her, which will pay for her college. That's not even a spoiler because we learn that, really quickly in the book, right off the bat. So again, along the lines of what I'm talking about, I can say positive, really great relationship with her mother. Negative, this is actually a very solid plan in terms of her independence as an adult that would help her in her future. And the grandma isn't around to fight with anymore. Why won't her mom support her? Which, of course, brings us to what is revealed in the synopsis: she's from a line of witches. However, it's something that her mom has never told her, so clearly it's like a secret. But also, at this point, if we've gotten to this fork in the road, again, that support is necessary. This is the time to be like, okay, let's talk about this family history. Let's talk about why things are estranged. Let's talk about your plan that you think is a good plan because you're an adult, you want your independence, you want this financial benefit that's going to help you in college in the future. It's not a bad plan. how can I help you? Because this is the place that I grew up. And it's just kind of this back and forth like this. Raven herself is a very likable character, but she's a little naive. Her best friend and her dynamic with her best friend is really amazing, but we only get a glimpse of it because, like I said, her best friend comes with her to Connecticut and then goes back to New York, and then Raven's here. I expect that the best friend will have more time in the series, but it's also weird to have your best friend go back and just try to talk down your mom. Like, in terms of even if they're like family, in terms of like being best friends, you guys want to be like on the same page when you're coming up with an excuse, right? So if anything happens, like with me and my best friend, like if she has issues and she wants backup, we are both there getting our story straight. If you know this is a move, if Raven knew this was a move that her mother would disapprove of, she shouldn't have let her best friend be the one to explain, distract, handle her mother. It didn't make sense to me. And again, this is within like the first, like, I think the first 1 or 2 chapters. It's not even like I'm giving you spoilers. This is just like right off the bat, this is happening. The description of the shop is really, really good. As I've stated in the synopsis, there is a talking cat. He's kind of really annoying, but his backstory is interesting. And he's really old. So I guess it's one of those things that is like, I've dealt with your family for so long, I'm gonna kind of be cranky. But for the most part in this book, he's more nuisance than help. There is also another character that we meet because we find the dead body, Raven finds the dead body in the shop. There is, of course, our potential love interest, which is the cop or detective in the series. At this point, I'm like, please just let them be friends, because that is all the chemistry that I see. I don't see anything heightening, but there are hints. There are always hints. Just because something is hinted to be the main couple doesn't mean that I think it really deserves the time of being that. It is the first book. It may be possible that I just don't see it yet. Right now, I just see it as strictly platonic. They have a great friendship, chemistry. Another thing that I've found in doing this series for the whole year is that there are times when there are stories like this where someone has died and the family member or person that they're inheriting from is estranged in some way, even if it's just, they haven't talked in a couple of years, right? Usually that means there's probably a bigger mystery than what the mystery is in the story. And I have no issue in that, but in terms of this, it is more confusing and convoluted than it needs to be. We're also clued into that mystery in the very beginning, and then we're focused on the main mystery in the story, so it kind of just cuts off and it doesn't go anywhere. For example, the dead body we find, Raven recognizes that to be the executor of the estate, the lawyer that her grandmother had hired. However, that lawyer is very well known in the town. So the cop's like, that's not him. I don't know who that is, but that's not him. And she's like, well, that's the only lawyer that I know, and these are the conditions that my grandmother stipulated for me to inherit. Well, everything seems to check out. All the details of the will are correct, but that's not the lawyer who is this guy. And so in the very beginning, we're hinted that there's a bigger mystery. We have Raven actually finding out some details of this mystery, and yet it gets immediately dropped, which is fine, because if it's gonna be a bigger mystery, I understand why it needs to be dropped. But it also would have been nice to see more like little Easter eggs, I guess, throughout the series that hints towards it, especially when we're talking about she's found a secret already in the family being witches. She has no idea what her powers are because she's never been told, she's never been trained. Her mother is unsupportive. Why? If the secret itself is deadly and is possibly the reason why there is a dead man in the tea shop, that presents a whole other host of problems in which we're talking about the safety of the new proprietor, Raven. For some reason, we're not too concerned about her safety or reopening the shop. And again, another positive, talking about the business. She talks about the business. She has to learn what her grandmother has to do. You know, she didn't work at the shop. It's not like in All Fudged Up that she came and visited her grandmother in the summer and worked with her, right? At least the protagonist of All Fudged Up, she kind of understands that she went to school and, you know, to do all of these things. We have someone who is new to this business, who has to run this business, who has some sales shop experience. Like, it is very different when you've basically inherited a sole proprietorship with its own list of clientels that expect it to be done in a certain way. So it, again, cool setup. I don't think Raven is prepared for this, and I don't know how she has even managed thus far. So for me, this was a 2 out of 5. I will not be continuing this series. It didn't give me really cozy vibes. The mystery itself was really not the best. As, I guess, not really a plot girly, but a plot envy, I don't think it gave me anything to grasp onto. And I know I gave a lot of information, but I try to give a lot of information that's just like right in the beginning, so it's not really spoilers. That being said, I'm now going to move into the spoilery part of this video, so this is your warning. Ready, set, time for spoilers. Okay, first of all, Raven goes to her grandma's house, which is now the place that she is going to stay, and she meets this guy. And he's like totally quirky, really weird, is very straightforward. Apparently he's there to help her grandmother with what we don't know. This guy just lives on the property. There are no other notes from the lawyer or even the fake lawyer about this person. And we're just meant for Raven to settle in and be fine with that. Because like at first she's like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. But then she's like, okay, so he's harmless. I'm like, girl, how do you know he's harmless? And then, on top of which, her grandma's place is a little ways away from town, so she's got to get a car ride. And at one point, the cat is playing like hide and seek with her phone magically. So at one point, she goes home, she's like, oh no, I thought I took my phone with me. I have to go all the way back to the shop. So she goes all the way back to the shop, looks around, can't find her phone. The cat magicked it away. Like literally just poof. Why? Because she wants to talk to her best friend about these developments. She just found out she's a witch, but guess what? She's not allowed to tell anyone. But wait. Her grandmother runs this tea shop with an understanding from her patrons that she sells them magical teas to help them with their desire. So for grandma, it's an open secret. But for everybody else, it just has to be a secret. There just has to be an understanding that there's not going to be persecution. Even the cop is like, I don't believe in that stuff, but your grandma sells herbs. I don't think she's like a scammer or anything. You know, it is what it is. And even Raven's like, I think she's scamming people, because at first she's like, I don't believe that this customer that came in that told me that my grandma has this like love potion tea that's gonna make somebody fall in love with her. Which is fair. Then once she finds out she's a witch, it's like, oh, well, you can still operate as your grandma has operated under the understanding of her previous patrons and fulfill those orders, but you can't outright tell anybody. Like, you can't tell the cop, hey, it's true. You can't tell your best friend, hey, I'm a witch. Like, this is a really new development. Like, I really need support because my mom does not support me suddenly. Which, by the way, in terms of the bigger mystery, Raven kind of finds information that hints that her grandma may be involved in a previous death. And if that is the case, then I don't understand why the mom can't be more supportive. Or even if she says, Raven, I want you to leave. I don't want you to stay in this town. I think it's trouble. I think trouble will follow us. That's why I left. Okay, fine. But it would be supportive to sit your daughter down and talk about it. Because Raven believes that her mother has some information about this, which made her leave Connecticut in the first place. Then we have our villain. That wraps up the mystery. And the main mystery, the way that the mystery was resolved, the villain and the villain monologue, was superficial. It didn't give me any feeling of anything. I didn't feel bad for the villain. I don't understand her motivations in terms of wanting something so badly that they would kill over it. And also the fact that the villain confronted Raven at all brings me back to that big gaping hole of how is Raven going to run this tea shop. That our villain didn't think that they could negotiate for their order in any way. It just seemed like there were a million things that you could do before you resorted to murder or even attempted murder. And so the whole thing felt dumb. Yeah, okay. So this character was not the character that I would have expected or even suspected, but it almost doesn't matter. At this point, insert any other single person, and it still probably would have made sense. Like, the lawyer, the real lawyer, he was exonerated by the police officer. He was like, oh, this guy was out of town. He has an alibi. He's not getting any kind of revenge because this guy stole his identity just to deal with this particular case. It would have still made more sense if it was like, oh, but secretly the lawyer also has magical powers, and this guy who tried to be him to intervene clearly has an issue and clearly knows that the lawyer has something very, very bad going on in the background. Like, give me something to think about. This was just literally like, it was a nothing mystery. So now I don't have cozy. I don't have mystery. I'm not even interested in the bigger mystery. And you're probably thinking, Nerissa, you rated this 2 out of 5 stars. What made it not a 1 star? 1 star and 5 star is really rare for me. 1 star more rare than 5 star. I would not call this so bad that I think it's a 1 star. It was just not my cup of tea. So that does wrap up today's episode of Cozy Saturday. The only cozy I'm feeling is how hot I am from complaining about this book. But 2024 is coming up, and I'm going to have more cozy mysteries to read. There are plenty of good ones out there to explore or re-explore. So thank you for watching this far, and I will see you in 2024. Bye!